It was a dark and stormy night, the kind of night that made even the bravest of souls shiver with fear. A group of friends had decided to spend the night in an old abandoned mansion on the outskirts of town, thinking it would be a fun adventure. Little did they know, they were about to experience a nightmare beyond their wildest imaginations. As soon as they entered the mansion, they were hit with an overwhelming feeling of unease. The air was thick with an eerie silence, broken only by the sound of their footsteps echoing off the walls. The furniture was covered in dust and cobwebs, and the floors creaked with every step. They made their way to the living room and lit a fire in the old fireplace to try and warm up. But as the flames flickered and danced, strange shadows began to form on the walls. The shadows seemed to move of their own accord, twisting and writhing as if they were alive. Suddenly, they heard a loud crash coming from upstairs. They all froze, unsure of what to do. Slowly, they crept up the stairs, heartbeats pounding in their chests. As they reached the top of the stairs, they saw that one of the doors was open. They cautiously approached the door, peering inside. The room was empty except for a large, ornate mirror on the wall. They all stared at their reflections in the mirror, but something was off. Their reflections weren't quite right. Their eyes were empty and soulless, and their skin was pale and lifeless. Suddenly, the mirror shattered into a million pieces, and their reflections reached out and grabbed them, pulling them into the shattered remains of the glass. They screamed as they were dragged into a dark and twisted dimension, where the only sounds were their own terrified cries. As the friends struggled to escape the twisted dimension, their hearts pounded in their chests and their hands shook with fear. The darkness seemed to press in on them from all sides, suffocating and oppressive. They clawed and fought their way through the dark and twisted realm, stumbling and falling as they tried to find a way out. The only sounds were their own terrified cries and the scrape of their shoes on the cold, hard ground. But the more they struggled, the more the darkness seemed to close in around them, trapping them in a never-ending cycle of horror and despair. They could feel the shadows pulling at their feet, trying to drag them down into the depths of the abyss. Despite their fear and exhaustion, the friends refused to give up. They clung to each other and pushed forward, searching for a glimmer of light in the endless darkness. As the group of friends screamed and clawed their way out of the shattered mirror, they found themselves back in the living room of the mansion. But something was different. The room was filled with the same strange shadows that they had seen earlier, but this time they were moving in a strange and unsettling pattern. Suddenly, the shadows coalesced into a figure. It was a tall, thin man with a sinister grin on his face. He reached out and grabbed the group, pulling them close. "You thought you could escape," he hissed. "But you're trapped here forever. You're mine now." The group struggled and fought, but it was no use. The man's grip was too strong. As they looked into his eyes, they saw something that made their blood run cold. It was their own reflections, staring back at them with empty, soulless eyes. In a final, twisted twist, the group realized that they had never truly left the mirror's realm. They were still trapped inside, their own reflections acting as a twisted version of reality. The man was merely an embodiment of their own fears and insecurities, a manifestation of the darkness that lurked within their own souls. And so they remained, trapped in the mirror's realm, forever tormented by their own reflections and the twisted reality they had created. The mansion would continue to lure in unsuspecting victims, and the cycle of horror would continue, with no end in sight.